Well, hello there, everybody. Yeah, jamming out in a little Leon Russell, I tell you. Love the dude and miss him. I mean, it's amazing how many have already crossed over. Gotta say, has to be a hell of a concert going on out there. That's all I think. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Thank you for tuning in. Let's just make sure that everything is looking groovy. And as you look here and you go, well, yeah, it says excellent connection. Okay, all right, then that's pretty groovy. I'll take that. Good connection. Let me just do that. And hey, we're all ready to go. Bus is pulling out. I hope you got your tables and trays down and your favorite libation on there. It's a smooth ride. Got really good shocks. And of course, speak favor over us all. Nothing missing, nothing broken. And you gotta love it. Hello, everybody in the chat room. Grace, Deborah Sloan, much love, darling. Mary Wins. Rick, how you doing, brother? Pengredy, good to see you, sir. Melissa, hello. Good to see you, DC. And I saw Gilbert in there. Hey, brother, how's it going, man? Speaking peace to you, man. Mr. Floyd, what's that? If you never had an opportunity to see, particularly the version of Joe Cocker, they did a tour back in 19, they went through 70 and early part of 71 with the shelter people. In fact, they did a documentary movie of that. And it was, wow, such creative talent. And I love the if you've ever seen the documentary of Joe Cocker and the shelter people, it was a family, this huge extended family traveling in buses, sometimes on the plane. And they had, the babies, the dogs, the cats. I mean, and it was just a real commune type of thing. And if you ever had a chance to see them in live, it was like a big old family reunion up there. And who can forget Leon with the top hat? I mean, it was just phenomenal. So, folks, Joe Sapien, hey, Brenda, how you doing, Street Mom? Good to see you, darling. Paul Joe, what's up, Jesse James? Hello, Jackie. Good to see you. Goddess, Amina, good to see you, my dear. Thank you. And anyway, you carry those memories, and I want that same vibration, that same frequency back. There's too much division, too much bifurcation taking place. And we've got to bring love back into the dialogue. I mean, that's the sad thing about today is that no one's talking about love. No one, nada. But we are. And we're that small ripple, you know, wakes build. And we're that pinprick. But we're explosive, baby. We just expand out. And we'll have concentric circles of love, you know, greater and greater degrees. Hey, Joyce, good to see you. Nina, hello, darling. So anyway, yeah, no, we got to bring the love back into it. Got to. What else? Boy, we had an experience last night at dinner. Um, we were sitting there and there's three of us all together. We were having dinner at our house, and we're just sitting down and breaking bread and just talking like, that's what you come together to do. That's what the whole evening meal is about. And so I got up to, I don't know, to go to the sink or something, and we heard this the sound. I mean, it at first it took us all by surprise because as you're about to find out, it shouldn't have happened. And so what we heard was initially coming from, we have in our house these portable intercoms. And, we have them throughout the house on the property. And right now, there was only one that was actually working her. And what we heard was someone pressing the button down to talk. And you could hear that they pressed it, and it was 3 times. And we all looked at each other and said, "Was that your cell phone?" No, it wasn't any of the cell phones. And then it happened again. And same 3 beeps. And we're all at this point, the electricity is everywhere. I mean, the hair is standing up on your arms and your back and neck. Because, folks, this is what made it so unusual. The fact that someone could do that in the system is one thing, downstairs or whatever, but that was not possible. But wait, what made it even impossible and now into the paranormal was the intercom upstairs was unplugged. So we all came to the conclusion that it was Richie coming by and saying, probably just to let everybody know, Lynn, he had a great fondness for Lynn. I mean, she was his nurse for a while. And um and we're all standing because what happened, I guess the grandkids, it had gotten knocked over and unplugged. And we just didn't bother to plug it back in. So we're standing there and, you know, how do you explain that? Well, you know, we'll all find out, but it was phenomenal. And no one felt negativity. It was really a very peaceful, easy feeling. And it was, you know, kind of cool. We all said that was really far out. So anyway, yeah, someone's AK Morningstar. Yeah. And Rick said it was Richie. Yeah, it was him. Paul Joe, good to see you. Ruby, hello, darling. Um, Interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Like, so cool. And, nothing else has ever happened since then. So pretty cool. Chloe, what's happened? Yeah, it's supernatural, isn't it? Hey, Gaia. How's Paul? Good to see you. Lady Ellie, good to see you. Far out. That's all I can say. It was just far out. So I think, to continue where we are and where we continue to go with this, deception. Who's the deceiver and who is the deceived? Because there's a lot of deception going on in this realm. It's just flat out a fact. Um, and the case could be made that there appears to be more soulless humans alive today than those who actually possess and maintain a soul. Because if the soul is the predator and initiating the deception upon themselves, others, etc., gets really strange. And we're going to get into that. So, first of all, I want to share. I have so many requests on where you can get resources, and there's a number of them out there. This is one. This is Christina. This is her website. I've left the link below. And, I just give thanks. I've actually donated to her because what she has done is put together 250 of some of the most rarest occult books. A lot of grimoires in here. And if you want to expand your library and like to do what I do, research this. That's why we're doing this. There's an old proverb that says, know your enemy. So when you begin to find out and study your enemy, so often you find out you have more in common than not. And knowledge is a phenomenal thing. Because remember, ignorance is a self-inflicted disease easily cured by knowledge. Some dude by the name of R. Wayne Steiger came up with that. Anyway, Christina, I just have to say thank you, darling. This is just phenomenal, folks. I mean, and there are other sites out there. If you know one and you want me to show it, then I'll be more than happy to. But again, if you're looking for a good resource, forgottenbooks.org is another one that you can go to. But again, um, you download all these and read them. I'll say you'll be a pretty well versed individual. So anyway, check that out. And like I said, show her that you love her. And that's cool. So let me get out of there. And here I am back. John, how are you doing? The real Dr. Shuck D. Let's get to see you. I love that. Now that is just so cool. I love some of the handles on here. Y'all are just, I gotta say. Chloe, what's up, darling? So let's get into this because my former religion taught me that this was the road to hell. You don't interact, you don't study, you don't even get near the material on demons. It's one of those big sins, it's like you want to get your name X'd out of the Lamb's Book of Life, well, that's the way to do it, buddy. And I find it so interesting. I mean, that's the big fear that they keep on you. If you start looking into the subject, because it's your enemy, right? The whole narrative is that this evil guy came in, had sex with Eve, and, said, hey, you gotta really get up with the topic because you're just, I don't know. I often picture Eve and Lilith more with red hair than anything else. But, and if you look at the story, kind of weird because how old were these people? I mean, in one story, they're apparently created at the same time, which means that there was nothing before. They had no past lives. Their existence started in the middle of existence that was already existing. You get that? So, and if you go by the narrative, that's, Genesis 1:26. And then all of a sudden you get this second story. And like I said, you don't ever know how old these other people were. They don't tell you. Who were they? They didn't have souls. That's the key thing here. They did not have a soul. They did not have the breath of this God breathed into it to them. That's weird. All right. So again, deception. What's going on here? Then the next one, how long do you live to name every animal on the planet, right? But then how old was that? And we don't know. And if you look on Eve's case, Eve was probably 3 days old. I mean, did she come into existence with all knowledge, all understanding? Apparently not. Otherwise, there'd have been no need for the fucking tree. The tree of knowledge, good and evil, blah, blah, blah. So, you got to think about, well, why would someone who create that, knowing that the vulnerability is there, expose them to the vulnerability and then blame them for the consequences of exposing them to the vulnerability when you were supposed to be the one that was watching their back? And then, but the narrative says it's the guy who comes in and sees the situation, Lilith. This is her sigil, wearing it to her day. We're going to get next week we're going to revisit the Liber Lilith. for a couple of shows. And but anyway, she comes along and says, "Hey, Eve, sister, I don't know how to tell you, man, but you're really getting hosed here." And like Eve's going, I'm only 3 days old, you know. Anyway, so it's all rolled into the narrative that we've been deceived. I get emails, from Christians that said, you know, Steiger, you're just deceived. You've fallen for the trap. The evil one has deceived you completely. Hmm. Well, all I got to say with that, if that's deception, well, then what the hell was it when I was in the religion? A full-blown lie? Was I hypnotized or what was going on there? Couldn't be that I was deceived because the religion that I thought was this religion that was thousands of years old really ain't. I mean, the modern version of Christianity today is less than 500 years old. The first Christianity, well, it exists, coexists, and it's kind of like, the overlord of the Christianity because it was first. But no one wants to admit that. What's going on here then? People quote the Bible all the time, and I say, you're deceived. That ain't the Bible. And they'll pound their fists on the ground, Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, 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 no. Your Bible is a reduced copy of the Latin Vulgate. And it was really kind of limited in itself because you get these 72, 75 books altogether, and they actually were derived from thousands of other books. They just didn't dig what was being said there. So that's deception across the board, right? I mean, how can it not be? So I was thinking about this and I said, all right, so let's check this out. I did a little presentation, some questions to ask ourselves on this because I think it's important. So the big question is this our friend or is this our foe? Again, this to point I didn't write these words. They did. It did. I don't know. Says it loves us, but then it kills us. It says not to kill, but it kills. Okay. Kind of confused on that one. It says it loves, but it's jealous and angry, vengeful. The thing about it is, I can't find where Lucifer is jealous, vengeful, angry. We've been through this ad nauseum. Can't find anywhere where Lucifer ever killed or ever drew one drop of blood. Well, anyway, so I began to think, all right, so here's the question. Are you a deceiver or are you deceived? Where do you stand on that equation? Now, before you go and answer it, let's just stop here a second and expand out on here. A deceiver. Are you a deceiver? Well, let's talk about this. I come up through sales and marketing. Was provided some of the best teaching on sales techniques. If you are really in like the top 10% and performers on a national level, there are certain events back in the day that you were invited to. And one of the things you find out about sales is that sales is truly an art. It is an art of manipulation. It's an art of deception. And it's an art of being able to create the illusion predicated upon the buyer's desire. So, is that deception? Or how about this? You have your doctor and they've got bad news, but they're not ready to break it to you because so they say, well, you know, there may be hope, but the prognosis looks very bad. I mean, does the medical profession deceive? Well, I don't know. Seems like it is on the line. And let's continue. So if you're into that, then you can say, yeah, but are you deceived? In other words, when you take a diagnosis or advice, do you just simply go with one or do you go get a second opinion? I mean, are you deceived? Don't know. Because the question becomes, how would you know? What would begin to awake you or make you realize, man, I'm a Decepticon. Like, man, I can't believe that. Or, wow, they kept me deceived all that time. It's like, you're the 13th guy on the deal, and which means that you're not in on the deal at all. How would you know? Interesting question. So, does the person who is deceived have a responsibility to become undeceived? Because at some point in time, there seems to be where you wake up to this. You're going, oh, now, wait a minute, I ain't buying that anymore. Case in point, you go back to the 1940s and 1950s, your doctor would most likely, if you were suffering from stress, anxiety, um, pregnancy, your doctor would have prescribed you start to smoke. You know, and back in the days, they actually had coupons. It was recommended that pregnant women smoke because of the nicotine and the other things that has a calming effect. Um, think about that. Hmm. So, do you have a responsibility? I mean, if you even have the thought or the question that you've been deceived, might be a pretty good indicator that that might be the case. And then you have to look in and say, how did that happen? Because you don't want to be deceived again. So here's a question. Are deceivers good or evil? It's parents do this. Parents lie and deceive their children. And adults will say, well, they're just not at the age to where they can fully understand or grasp that. I get that, but deception is deception. We go through these make-believe holidays, Christmas. Christmas ain't about some myth of some baby being born somewhere. That's way down the list. It's about what am I going to get? This is what I want. This is what I want. I want it right now, right now. Give it. Yeah, I mean, and then the deception is you see with so many parents is that in economic hard time, and even those who don't have the money, because the big machine always has the big presents, um, they go into debt, which isn't that deception. So are the deceivers good or are they bad? I mean, I was always taught that, the devil, Satan, Lucifer, the great deceiver, evil, 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 evil. Yeah. But, evil is also depends if you look at the inverse of reality, actually is live. Hmm. Well, I guess every dog would be a god. And then the question becomes, well, so what does a deceiver look like? Are there characteristics, traits, physical features, mental attributes? How do you know if you're in the proximity, even the relationship of a deceiver? How would you know? So I put a little list and I said, okay, let's just look at some possibility of deceivers. I think you would agree with me. Congress people, men or women, senators, basically politicians are all deceivers. They all lie. They all deceive. What's going on today is that you have what all you can say are non-human beings, because if you're saying that these are human beings with a soul, whoa, they master. This is the occult. This is the big leagues, baby. These cats, they're into the occult. Why? Because they're the greatest deceivers of all. Hmm. How about this one? How about those nasty, ugly Democrats and those filthy Republicans? Are they all deceivers? Or have they been deceived? That congressperson you vote for, that senator, that politician, are they deceivers? Or have they been deceived? Biden, Harris, deceivers? You call it. How about Trump? Trump a deceiver? How about corporations? How about these large international mega technology corporations? Deceivers? Experimenting upon the users? How about preachers, evangelists? How about religion in general? Deceivers? Are they built and designed to deceive you? I've seen some pretty good evangelists. Man, they could get into the people's pockets. Woo! And religion requires a tax, a fee, the tithe, however you want to call it, making promises that, you're going to get X in return. Deception? How about people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos? Deceivers? How much deception did they use to get to the top? How about musicians? Music. When the Beatles came out, there was protests, radio stations burning their records, and yeah, that this music was the devil's music. It was going to take the youth and pollute their minds, and their morals would become degraded. And speaking of that, how about occultists? How about magicians? Magic. There's so much deception in magic, it's not even fucking funny. I mean, there's so much fucking deception in magic. And magicians is all about illusion, which is basically deception. So that would indicate that they are, in fact, deceivers. How about occultists? Propagating books that are supposed to be old and have a deep foundation. And speaking of which, how about the Bible itself? It's a conjuration of a thought that was basically assembled out of a cherry-picked group of documents. Because the Bible, which is deception within itself, but it will point and say, well, no, the true deceiver is Satan, Lucifer, the devil, demons, angels. Well, if they're deceivers, then that would mean God and Jesus are deceivers, which means yourself is a deceiver, which means the human race is a deceiver race, because our words are used in words of deception. I mean, pick and choose, children. I mean, tell me, So who's the perpetrator and who's the victim? Because if you ask me today, in politics, religion, it's all deceiving. You got where today it is considered to be an honorable thing to lie and deceive. What the fuck is up with that? And we accept it as norm. It's now part of our nomenclature. It's about putting on a front, an image, because you want to deceive the people that you are something that you're not. But you know that. I mean, if we're all angels, fallen angels, gods, then what are we doing here? If not to deceive ourselves? Because this, no matter how you look at it, put that out. Thank you. You close that file out as we get back here. What's going on? Obviously, something is. And so when you become aware of this, then your receptors become hypersensitive because you're having to basically examine every aspect of that which you believe, and then you have to determine, is your belief the result of you being deceived in order to be believing in it? Because you were told that's the way it was. And if the one who's teaching is deceived and therefore teaches others to be deceived, who's deceived? Who's not? Hey, Kitty, how you doing? Uh, it's a question. Uh, I'm just looking over there in the chat room, but it's true. I mean, part of what I have found in occultism is that I've learned to take a neutral stance because I possess the knowledge of nearly 50 years of a doctrine, and it gets in you way deep, deep down. And you're challenged all the time. I mean, again, I would have never studied any of these grimoires. Are you crazy? But now I have to ask myself, so who is really, are the roles reversed here? Because the one thing I have found about, and you have to understand, much of what we see today is this occultism, particularly in the area of demonology, angelology, etc. It's really pretty recent in the timeline. I mean, much of this came about between the 14th and 17th centuries, supposedly from much older records. And fortunately, we have some of those. We know the Sumerian tablets exist. There's the cylinders. So we have an understanding of what we, as a species, believed about 10,000 years ago. And if you study this enough, you find out all these grimoires are basically, and I'll just say this, it's a reincarnated Hinduism. The Hindu belief system, from what I've been able to research, is the originator of a lot of this. And so when I'm reading about these archdemons and the archangels and all the rest of this, I got to take it into balance that if these creatures exist, then there is a process, a society, a culture that they propagate, they live in, and somehow or another we're into the equation. Now, when I look at it, and we're going to study a little bit about Asmodee, because when you look at these high-ranking demons, I can see the correlation right over there in the Bible. And when I read about the rituals, I can go right over to the book of Leviticus and see the same thing. The same thing. They may have different rooms, but it's the same hotel. And I go, well, okay. And if it's really my enemy, I would have to be one ignorant fool to say, well, if I had the opportunity to study my enemy and I don't, and I say no, well, then you're going to step back. And naturally, we would always say, well, you deserve what you get. And so Lady Ailey says, spiritual discernment. Isn't that interesting? That is also a gift of the Holy Spirit. 9 particular gifts of the Holy Spirit. Each one is divided into a 3 subgroup. And one of them is the gift of discernment. And the gift of discernment is the ability to see the spirits. Well, I got to go, huh? Well, if one spirit can give it to another spirit, then it seems to me that there apparently any spirit can have it. But anyway, and that kind of goes along with the whole process as well. I'm reading some of the comments in here. But it's true. And so if it is my enemy, then I would only be deceiving myself if I said I'm not going to study it. I mean, how do you know other humans actually practice this? Well, that's why you read. What I have found, folks, and this is a family in here, is that very few, and I do mean very few, actually practice this modality. Very, very, very few. It's dangerous because if the uninitiated is exposed, it short circuits a lot of stuff. And there are things that one has to learn about before you approach something. I mean, if the spirit realm exists, which I do believe it does, then these beings are there. Now, I don't know when you cross over, do you actually interact with them? I don't know if there's a segregation of realms and neighborhoods and worlds or whatever, but appears maybe. I don't know. You know, maybe that's the side of the neighborhood you don't go down. Could be just that simple. But if they exist and they exist to the numbers that are said, I come out where, I took what John wrote in Revelations, 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000. Yeah. So, I mean, it ends up being something like 100 trillion. And then Lilith, she tells us that she's producing thousands of new spirits all the time. So it seems to be a pretty big realm, and it seems to be a pretty wild place. And if voiceover, right back at you. Thank you for coming in. Destruction, thank you. It said it absolutely does exist. Yeah, it does. So that's why we study here. This is fun. It's fun because we're at least learning something. Now, whether it's to deceive us, well, that's I think really individually you have to come to that or not. I mean, what drew you to this to begin with? Was it mere curiosity? Or if it was, like in my case, the determination to find out just what the fuck is going on here? You know, immersed a half a century into a system that they can't even define who and what their God is. But yet they're the ones who told us about this realm of demons. I mean, I'm just arguing this case. I mean, it seems like to me something's going on. So if demons only became into existence or knowledge-wise right about the 1st century, well, where'd they come from? I mean, it comes in the whole question, and then you get into the lore that has now contaminated virtually every part of that belief system. Is that deception? Is that deliberate? Is there the Great Deceiver? Who is that? I mean, if it's this Lucifer, I'd have to argue differently, because that would then violate its whole modus operandi. Um, so let's have a little fun while we got a little bit of time here still to go. So we're going to get into, again, because there's so many books out there. I found this one in my library, and it's interesting because I've got thousands and thousands of books in there, and it's like going into, it's like your cup never goes empty. I mean, you can have tea and finish the glass, and you can look back and it's refilled again. So there's so much to this. And Enochian magic is, again, a modern interpretation of a ritual, a thought process. But it's fun because it's in here talking about arguing with the angels. And this is a cool little book. We'll visit this because we'll look at it different chapters. But again, another take on the structure of these beings. And if you look how it's permeated our consciousness in so many different veins and so many different points of view, virtually everybody, if you ask them if angels are real, are probably going to say yeah. And the thing about it is that they know what an angel is. Now, you ask them the same thing, is a demon real, and they'll be even more quicker to say, oh yeah. But they've never actually seen either, but they certainly know that they both exist. And you ask them why. And typically it's going to be a grandmother or someone of a mentor thing that, impacted their beliefs on that, which is so curious. And then the point here is, if these beings are of an intellect and that they have the ability to know every language, then that's pretty smart. It would be a little intimidating to me. You're sitting or approaching this being that possesses a knowledge I don't even remember. Yet I'm going to bind it, I'm going to control it, and I'm going to command it. Really? And if that is possible, then why? Why would an angel, why would a demon obey me? It says that I'm immortal. It says that I will die. Yet, while I'm in this corporeal form, I can command archangels, archdemons. I can command legions. Oh, no, no, no. That's all nonsense. That's all mental. Well, that is the first law. The universe is mental. But nevertheless, it seems like if that is the case, then I ought to get some background information real quick. And part of my point here is that, well, the Jewish God in the book of Isaiah says, come, argue your case to me. Make your argument. How many of you are ready for that one, right? So we'll check this one out as well. Came across this one here recently. Haven't gotten into it, so I can't really vouch for it, but I think it's going to be interesting. Again, it's Lucifer ascending. Again, realizing that it was Jerome in 375, somewhere around there, 425, when he was in Caesarea in the caves, that he was the one who inserted in the book of Isaiah 14 the word Lucifer. And you can see how it's grown since then. And even if it wasn't real, even if it was a figment of his imagination, I don't know if the dude was eating mushrooms, what, may have had some really good pot back then, or maybe he just got some bad wine. Whatever the deal was, he came up with this, and he had apparently this preconceived idea of a creature. Now, if you study this enough, we know that it was probably based upon what we would call the ancient god of Maul. So anyway, um, and today Lucifer plays a starring role in our whole culture and beliefs. Lucifer, who was initially of a small group, has now ascended to worldwide popularity. Dominance? No. And as a result of that, there has been divisions within, well, who and what is Lucifer? And again, you have individuals like myself who come to the conclusion that if this cat is so bad, why did he rebel in what was supposed to be perfection? Was he deceived? He claims he was. I mean, why would a creature that was created perfectly in a perfect environment find the ability to become imperfect? Or how could a perfect creature find imperfection in perfection? It seems like that's the ultimate deception. So anyway, we'll get into this as well. Got a request on this, and we'll get into it because I think it goes right in hand. We'll revisit. I did a couple, and it's been, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, but it's nice to always bring this material back into where we are now. And again, John Dee. When I think of John Dee, I always think of Lilith. I mean, it for me, it's one and the same. So we only got a few minutes. So this is the. Let me get back up to where we are. This is. Give me 1 second as I move myself down to here. So this is Asmodee, and this is how he manifested before a exorcist, a master magician. So, if they can manifest physically, I think that's pretty freaking cool. I don't know about you, but I got to get myself out of that plane. Going down here. Well, it ain't working now. There it is. Okay. Give me 1 second, folks, as I'm messing with that. All right, so as we left off of this, I covered this, I think maybe it was on Monday. It says, "This is the manner in which I revealed myself unto my scribe. First, I caused him to be curious." Now, the interesting about scribes is that every religion I've studied, whether it's Egypt, Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Babylonian, Hebrewism, all of them have scribes. So they're writing down shit, man, that they're saying, all right, this is what our beliefs is. And of course, the scribe is just merely writing from the point of view of what he's being instructed to write. Well, I've been thinking about what's in their head. He said, first I caused him to be curious about. Well, that's curious. And then order by mail a copy of the book called the Goeta. Then, when the book arrived, and this is actually Ardell in his story, so there's some correlation going on here. And he says, and then when the book arrived at his house, and he was alone one day, I came out of the book like a genie from the lamp. First, as a cloud of red light, and then with my voice I said unto him, stand back in the room, and I will manifest myself before you. In wonder and awe, upon hearing the voice and seeing the cloud of energy, he moved to the back of the room. Then it was as if to his sight the cloud opened, and there I was before him. He could see every detail of my form, down to the hairs of my head. The dragon I ride turned its head and looked at him in the eye. Pick up the book, I commanded him. He reached down and picked up the book. He was as frozen or dead, staring at me. His mouth hung open and his eyes were shining like glass, reflecting the flame of my being. He did not move, only stared. Open the book, I said to him. I reached out and caused his fingers to open it. And isn't it interesting? Where I come back from the Bible, there's many times when they've supposedly met this angel, the angel of the Lord, completely comatose. Um, Yet still he stared at me in awe. Look down, I said to him. He did so. Now, who has control of who here? That's what I'm saying. And then he saw my description in the book. In that moment, he knew that I was the demon king, Asmodeus. Well, Asmodeus, we welcome you here. We speak favor over you, and we thank you. He began to ask, listen, no matter what your point of view is, it doesn't excuse you from civility, common manners. Um, he began to ask me questions. I've revealed to him the course of his life and all the secrets of the book you now hold in your hands. I then took his soul into the demonic realm and showed him the spears of the Great Spirit. When this journey was done, and he was once again within the flesh, he could not bear the immensity of the vision I had showed him. All that he could remember of me was my name and my form and my coming forth from the book. To this day, he cannot remember me returning him to his house. After I had revealed myself to him the first time, I began to teach him slowly where to find the various techniques of the book. Sometimes he would see me clearly, and other times he would only hear a voice or feel a stirring of power in the room. I had to be careful with his soul. If I came too close to him, it was more than he could bear, and he would forget what I had said to him. That is why many times I would subtly direct the course of his life and encounters with others so that this or that book would be brought to him, or this or that teaching would be made known to him in his mind. Yet always it was me that was teaching him. I'll share a little story here. Back in the day, I guess I was about 18. Anyway, I lived in this complex, this apartment complex, and there was a couple, Eric, I still remember his name, and his wife, Cheryl. Um, so I had my first encounter with the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. And, because I was still pretty young and held in a lot of superstition, I think I had threw it away or something. Eric and I, we would work out with weights. And so he goes out taking the trash out and he comes back with this satanic Bible. And I looked at him and I said, "Where'd you get that?" He said, "It was sitting right outside the door." So, yeah. Anyway, I took to read the book a little more carefully but it was weird. I gave him a map to guide his actions and to make him a witch. Every word of this book is mine. Within the map lie the keys to the gates of infinity. As I have given them to Diabolital, my beloved scribe, I give them also to you. Every word of this book is truth, and so must Diabolito swear. Finally got it right. All right. I am a lord of lust and passion. Those who know me call me by name, saying, "Are you Asmodee?" And I will not deny it. Come, walk the path with me, and I will give you all your heart's desires, for I am the devil. Hear now the words, and again, remember that devil is a small d, so it's, you know, nothing personal, right? Hear now the words of the demon Asmodeus. I myself will be the teacher of any man who follows this path. For a woman, the younger Lilith is her teacher. When a man does the sayings of this book, he becomes as I am. When a woman does these things, she becomes like unto the younger Lilith. How about them apples? When these two unite in the act of sex, this is the great rite of witchcraft, Tantara, and Al-Ghul. Hear now the words of the demon Asmodeus. The map that I have given you is a complete system of magic. Once you understand it, nothing remains except its practice. Begin at the top of the map each day and count down as you work each of the techniques through each of the 7 steps. Spend at least 1 minute performing each technique every day, and you will become a witch. It will take you 13 minutes to perform the sexual, yogi, breath control, the tolti, and the witchcraft parts of the map. This is called the Ring of Virtues, or the Rosary of Our Lady, the younger Lilith. Thus, you will have the power to call the spirits of the celestial, terrestrial, and infernal regions. Wow, that's pretty deep, isn't it? Hear now the words of the demon Asmodeus. The map that I have given you is a formula, a ritual, a spell, and a number. Only when each step is taken will it manifest its true nature. The alchemical transformation of a man into a god and a woman into a goddess. I think that may be a good place to let off. Well, let's just do a little one more. The map touches each part of a human being in their body and soul. It awakens each part and fills it with dragon power, the Kundalini, the fire snake. In the most ancient of times, these techniques were known to a small group of sorcerers. They were called the Al-Ghul. The word Al-Ghul has many meanings. It is the teachings of the map. It is the witches themselves. It is the name of the star in the sky that appears to blink and is connected to Samael and the elder Lilith. It is the head of the ghoul or the demon. The light of the star awakens the witch to power through the map. I, Asmodeus, have revealed all these things unto my scribe, along with my secret name, Ashmadahi. Well, we'll break it right off there, pick up there tomorrow. Wow, pretty deep stuff. You ain't going to see that on your Sunday program. Yeah, how about that? Well, and I really felt that that energy. It's like when you read this out loud, you're actually speaking in the voice of, in this case, Asmodeus. So thank you, sir, and favor. And isn't it interesting that in this grimoire, it's very clear that there is a separation of the two aspects, the male and the feminine. And the masculine goes in one direction and the feminine, but they end up coming back together. And then when the two interact with one, well, that's when some serious work can get done. So yeah, and if you want the PDF, it is out there. I do have it. Again, it's learning. I don't recommend one way or the other. It's learning. Again, as Nina says, you have to be open-minded about this. Listen, when they would call Yahweh, Jehovah, the Elohim, into the temple, and when you study what the Holy of Holies is all about, ladies and gentlemen, it's the same process. These are powerful entities. And unfortunately, the Western mind has corrupted which was originally very local to a local group. The Hebrews that came out of Egypt, if you believe the narrative, um, they were guided by master demonologists, master magicians. They knew how to bring these beings down. And it's no doubt that Asmodeus and with the rest of them are ancient beings. And listen, I'm not like the best at this thing, but I have enough common sense to know if I'm in the presence, uh, met President Reagan and President Bush. I mean, there is a protocol you show when you're in the presence of a human being holding a title or office. It's no different than a spirit being. And if you show that kind of respect, those of you who are seekers like myself, they'll show favor to you. You don't even have to call them. You become known to them. Lilith told me that. When you speak favor, and that's what will envelop me and endue me as I cross over to the other side. It's favor. To the right or to the left. So there we go. Destruction says the Elohim is not Jehovah. I would have to agree with that. Then again, are the Elohim the Anunnaki? It's it's all information. It's knowledge, and I do this with an open mind. I mean, this is powerful. Just reading this out into the public is powerful. Now, it won't work until you get the other part, but we'll read some more of the parts to that. So anyway, Lost in Space, how are you? Oh, well, I'd love to hear more about that. Destruction Art Studios. Love to hear that. Joy says it's all perspective. It really is. And if you can come in with a balanced, neutral perspective, hey, that's when things happen. So, hey, Regina, what's up, girl? Good to see you. Yes, it is. She says it's true. It's learning spelling, reading, writing, and math. Absolutely. And Gaia says, and it's recorded. That's true. That's true. Oh, I'll tell you what, I love this group. Best group of open-minded people I've ever come across. And that's favor. That's this full manifestation of favor. And I look at all of y'all and that's what I see. So it's an open mind just said it's all the same, just a different perspective from a different time. Exactly. Couldn't have said it better myself, open-minded. So there you go. Etrocentric says a balanced, neutral perspective. Doesn't it work? Why can't we have politicians that figure that out? Why can't we have companies that can't figure that out? They're lost. They're like, and so polarized. That's why they need people like us saying, now, wait a minute, calm down. It's going to be okay. No, what do? They're trying to get us into freaking World War III. Hey, Brandon, how are you, brother? So I could go on for another half hour. But I tell you, there is a compelling factor in reading that book. It's just, yeah. So, all right, respect to all of you. Much love. Thank you for being a part of this phenomenal journey. Love one another, and that's the key. Above all things else, whether they real or not real, it is the attitude of love. How can you not forget Patrick Swayze and the movie Ghost? I mean, as he said in that famous line, you carry it with you. You do. All right. Much love to all of you. Thanks, F Kitty. Yeah, it's all the same, and we're just seekers, We're not trying to piss off anybody. We're just trying to learn. That's all we're trying to do. Well, thank you, sir. Yes, indeed. It's true, Brandon. You should have heard how we all had that wonderful experience last night with Richie. So, all right, folks, see y'all tomorrow.